everyone! Welcome to DuoChicks Chat, where two chicks
Angel.
and Bella chat about whatever comes to mind the good, bad, serious, and funny. I figured we would start with basic introductions. So, Angel, could you start off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Angel. I'm an American living in Japan, but I'm originally from New York City. I studied K 12 social studies education and Japanese history and culture at university. I used to be a social studies teacher in America, but I gave that up for the glamorous life of teaching English here in Japan. I've been living here for a little over 5 years now, and I can't imagine being happier anywhere else.
Nice. My name is Bella. I am also an American. But before I ever lived in America, I actually lived in Germany for 5 years and moved around Europe a bit as well. And then finally moved to America, where then I hopped around the East Coast basically. In university, I was a double major in secondary education and history, and I also had a minor in American Sign Language, which clearly I have many opportunities to use. It's great. No, it's so bad. My friends make fun of me all the time whenever I talk with them. It's horrible. But anywho, after a year of teaching high school social studies in the U.S., I decided basically I needed a change of pace and to get away from like the American school systems. And I moved to Japan. And originally, when I came here, I had plans to return to America after a year. But somehow I've stayed, and I'm going into my fifth year, and I don't know how that happened, honestly. um, but I was a full time English teacher before, but now I work as an assistant. So yeah, this is our first episode, right?
Hmm.
And so my thought process today, Angel, is because it's our first episode. Of course, we have our basic introduction and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just boring. So instead, I
Oh, is
figured
it?
what we're gonna yes. Okay, we're done. Click. We
Woo!
made our intros. We're good. Let's go home.
Did it.
Let's take a nap. I did order tapioca, so I'm waiting for that. um,
Oh, jealous.
right, that Uber Eats is wild here in Kyushu. Um, but yeah, so I figured what we would do is we would play the questions game. Do you
Ooh,
know the
okay.
questions game?
Not super well. Tell me the rules one more time.
Okay. So like I don't know if this is like a real thing or just something like I made up back in university when Tinder became big and I was trying to like get to know people on Tinder. Um so basically you just go back and forth asking questions and you answer the questions and you go back and forth. If you choose to pass a question you can. There's no rule requiring you to answer the question. And I figure we could go back and forth, ask each other questions. They could be serious questions, really stupid questions. It really doesn't matter. And for our listeners as well, I thought if they think a question's very interesting, I think they should definitely feel free to comment down below their um, answers to any questions that they were really interested in.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys have any ideas or any questions you liked from our little conversation, then post your answers below. Or if you have any questions for us, anything you're curious about, let us know and we'll answer those questions in the comments below.
Yep. So, I figured if you don't mind, I will go first asking my question, and then you can go after.
Sure.
Is that fine? All right,
Yeah.
cool. So my very first question, I have a list here. Okay, my
Oh,
very
good.
first question is: if you could live in a book, TV show, or movie, what would it be? So pick one: book, TV show, or movie, and then
Mm-hmm.
what would it be that you would want to live in?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Right? I'm just like
Hmm.
off the bat. Here you go. Go for it, Angel.
I would have to choose. I know what I want to choose.
Okay. 50 Shades of
Um,
Grey. Got it.
yeah,
Uh,
done. No,
sorry.
I want to choose like Meitante Conan, but
Oh, yeah.
but I like TV show. A lot of murder happens in that show, so I'm not 100% sure that'd be a good idea. All
Right. But,
right.
like, would you be a main, if you did, would you be a main character in that show? Because main characters never die,
No, main
right?
characters don't. Well, I mean, the show has over 900 episodes, so some main characters have died. we'll talk about that another time. But
Okay,
anyway,
so anywho, what
um,
would you be in?
I would definitely want to be in. I would definitely want to be in the Sherlock Holmes universe.
Which Sherlock Holmes? Like the Robert Downey Jr.
No, the
one
original
or
Arthur
like the
Conan
movie?
Doyle one.
Okay, I mean, I don't know. Do you know how many different did you know? Sorry, real fast. Did
Mm,
you know there is a Japanese version of Sherlock
mm-hmm,
and it's called Mrs. Sherlock and it's a woman version and that's like her nickname. And then, Dr. John Watson,
mm-hmm.
there is a character and I almost peed myself. I laughed so hard in the first episode when this character was introduced
Mm,
because Watson is not a Japanese name, yeah? Like
right,
how are they going to like Sherlock as a name makes sense because it's a nickname and they were very clear
right.
on that. How do you make Watson a nickname?
Mm,
Because they when they met they didn't like grow up as friends, it's like a random introduction, that's how
right.
Sherlock and John become a thing. And so so Watson's character is she is a like retired doctor, mortician, something something, whatever whatever, and her name is Wato.
Wato-san.
Wato.
Ha!
Yeah, that's what it was. And so like she was like, my name is like Wato Naomi or something like that. And they were like, okay, Wato-san. And I was like, oh my god. And I almost peed my pants.
You know what? Credit
Wild.
where credit's due. That's pretty
Right?
clever.
So
No,
um,
I would definitely want to be in like the original Arthur Conan Doyle version. One,
okay.
drugs were treated so cavalierly. They were so much fun, clearly.
Right,
But the mystery and the kind of the novelty of it was so new. Everything is
hmm
so new, and a lot less murder happens in the original stories than most people think. A lot of the stuff he does is like finding things that are lost.
hmm
There's a lot less murder than you think about when you think of Sherlock Holmes. A lot of that's a more modern concept. So a lot of his stories are originally more like discovering people hiding or finding where people are
uh,
missing or finding lost objects. So I would
right.
definitely want to be in the original one.
Okay.
Although women
I
do
get
tend to die in that too.
women are screwed in almost literally, figuratively, and all that in almost every source of media. So whatever.
Yeah.
Um, like, sorry, I'm watching my tapioca thing, and I
Mm-hmm.
think he's gonna ring my door in just a second. So you can ask your question, but in just a second, okay?
You
Because
got
I'm
it.
like he like just pulled up in front of my house. It'll take him a second though, because I'm pretty far up in my building. Um, we don't have an elevator. You have to like climb all the stairs.
There's not
It's
even a service elevator?
no, it's horrible.
That's
And
unfortunate.
it's right, and it's like an outdoor like one as well, so it gets like super hot. And like the sun's right there like all day, so like the front of the building's just like radiating heat.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I go out of my room into like the hallway where the door is, it's just like hot.
Yep.
So like if I'm in there for a long time, I have to bring like my little floor fan with me and
Yeah,
I
your
put
little
it in
floor
the
fan.
hallway, and
Yep.
it's wild. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
I totally hear it. There you go.
there he is. Hold on.
Fitch.
That was the delivery driver that loves me. He's always really like sweet to me.
It's amazing to me that you have a favorite delivery driver.
I don't know if that's good or sad. Like how much tapioca do you order? Way too
Exactly.
much. Um, here's my tapioca. It's a chocolate
That's
tapioca, and I got like extra pearls. Oh, and they drew Pooh on the side. Winnie the Pooh, Pooh-san,
that Pusan. That's so cute. And I'm
Pooh-san.
incredibly jealous.
Sorry. I mean, sorry, not sorry, but sorry. Okay, sorry. So your
Your
turn.
answer?
Oh, what would I be in?
Yeah.
Um, I it's gonna be weird, and that's fine. Um, if I were to be in like a book, TV show, or what movie? What was it?
Mm.
Yeah, I would want to be. It's hard, right? I asked the question. I don't even really know my own
Yeah.
answer.
It's harder than
Um,
you think it is.
it is. It is. It is. I I would want to say I would want to be like in Alice in Wonderland, like the original book,
Mm.
Because I love Alice in Wonderland. Like I'm a huge fan of it. Like to the point, like I read it so often. I like even to this point, I can still, for the most part, recite the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
ridiculous. Um, so yeah, maybe Alice in Wonderland. I would say, but like at the same time, I've recently gotten into like My Hero Academia,
Mm.
and I'm like, I would want a quirk, but knowing my basic self, I would probably be a person with like a sixth toe or whatever, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to get it. And then I'd be like screwed because All Might already passed on his stuff, and I'd be like, dang it, you
Or you'd
know.
be like the
So
girl from Full Metal Alchemist who just grows her fingernails.
greed.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. But I say if it wasn't for all the war in that one, I wouldn't say that one.
Fair
But
enough. Okay.
mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's do another question.
Yeah, what's yours?
Ooh, okay. What's something you really want to learn?
Hmm. That's also a hard question because like I'm a big believer in the fact that like we never stop learning, and if you do,
Mm-hmm.
you're failing at life essentially.
Yep.
um like something I could like just learn, like if I could have just know it, or like actually put in the effort to learn something.
Something you definitely want to accomplish before you die.
Okay, so like I would have, it's not like magic, I wouldn't just be able to
No,
do
no,
it.
no.
Okay, I was gonna be like Japanese, but in that case no,
Oh,
never
me
mind.
too, man. Me
I'm already
too.
trying. Ugh. No, I think if I had to learn something, I I used to years ago, back in high school, first year university, I practiced Muay Thai. I
Mm,
think maybe I mentioned that. I don't know if you know, but so I used to practice Muay Thai up until I got it really badly injured, and so I had to quit. So I would want to learn something like that, like either go back to doing Muay Thai or doing like maybe like Kung Fu or Tai Chi or something like that. You know, a
mm-hmm,
form of self defense, but also like it is like an art form in itself.
mm-hmm.
And so I think something like that would be very interesting to learn. Um, yeah, especially like I follow like a lot of like those kind of channels on like TikTok, so
Mm-hmm.
I follow a lot of um like I don't know what they're called, like dojos, I guess, like dojos or like temples. I follow a lot of them, and I think that's like a really cool thing to like watch and do. It's like it's such a discipline that like
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
don't know if I honestly have the ability to do so, but I think it
Yeah.
would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
How about you?
I definitely want to learn kimono.
Mm,
I really want to take some kimono lessons, and I've been invited by a few people to take kimono lessons,
mm-hmm.
places around here. Because for anyone who doesn't know, I live in a place that's very historic, so there's a lot of like ancient history around here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of uh, kimono language studies and kimono styling studies around here,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just so expensive.
Right.
So I definitely want to learn kimono at some point. It just might be my retirement activity.
Right. Have you thought about doing like kimono taiken? Because I did a taiken lesson, and for anyone who doesn't know, taiken is like a trial lesson. So
Hmm.
have you done like a kimono like school taiken? Because a lot of them do that, and so you could
We've
try it.
we've done some friends of mine and I have done some, not so much like the trial lesson, but more like a festival party lesson kind of thing,
Mm,
where you kind
yeah.
of go there and you get like the most basic of basics,
Right.
and they dress you up and you kind of get the chance to do it. And I've done a full oiran styling, and for the Japanese
Mm-hmm.
listeners who know what oiran is, it's a specific type of photography,
Right. There you go.
and that's the word I'm looking for. And I've done the full thing with the makeup, the hair, the thousands of pounds of kimono. So I have that experience, but I haven't, like, I don't know what everything means, and I don't know the language behind it, and I definitely can't style it on my own. So I do want to do like the full lesson. I want to be able to like do the whole thing by myself. It's gonna take a while, and it's gonna be so expensive. Like real kimonos are. I was gifted from a student. I was gifted this gorgeous hand sewn obi,
Oh.
which is it was made in Kyoto, and it's just so beautiful. But I can't do anything with it because I don't know how to style with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So let's see where are my questions. There we go. My next question for you is, where is it? Which animal best represents you and why?
Best animal to represent me would be a crocodile.
Crocodile. Why a crocodile?
One, it's my favorite animal, so
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
associate with it a lot. Yeah, crocodile has been my favorite animal since I was a real little kid. I love it so much, and I'm definitely the wait and see kind of person. I'll sit back and observe and let things kind of come to me, and when the time is right, strike. That's very much my style of being. Not to mention, I enjoy being worshipped like the god dinosaur that I am.
As long as you're aware. Most important, you know, Kami-sama over here.
Exactly. How about you?
100% an elephant. I adore elephants to the point that like I cry when I see them.
Oh my god.
I do, and like I was in university, I was an RA, and my students had found that out, and they every day for like 2 months, I would come home from class, and on my door would be like elephant pictures that they would print out at like the library during the day before I got back, and like stick them on my door, so that I'd be in the hallway, and I'd just like, ah! And I would like burst into tears, and like nowadays I'm pretty good with holding it back because like I think they like honestly like killed that spirit a little bit in me. um but yeah,
Overexposure.
but right, pretty much. But like I do love elephants. They're such sentimental creatures, and they're so smart, and they never forget, and they are like they show a form of empathy that I feel like a lot of people can't, and they show empathy toward other animals as well,
Yeah.
not just their own kind. And I think that's like a very like admirable trait, even though it's among an animal. So yeah.
Right. That's interesting. That's actually reminds me. There's an elephant experience in Tokyo. Did you know about this?
No, what's up? What?
It's at Ueno Zoo. So everybody leave a like. If you leave a like, maybe Bella and I will hit up Ueno Park in Tokyo and go to the elephant
Maybe. I mean, I'm
experience.
right. I mean, please, yeah, like the video, because if you don't, I can't go. Oh my god! What? How have I lived here for 5 years and not known this? What the fuck?
We'll get there. We'll get there. All right, next question.
Mm-hmm.
What's your most embarrassing memory?
Oh god. You know how many, like, I'm an insomniac, okay? I don't sleep well. Do you know how many nights where I just lay there and think about every single moment in my life that's embarrassing? But like my most right, but like my
safe for what for YouTube.
no, of course. I don't know. My most embarrassing. I have a lot of embarrassing moments in my life where I'm just like, um, my most. Of course, now it's like come up with one off the top of your head, and I'm like, oh no.
Maybe we had some problems with this improv show we have.
Right. I would say probably my most embarrassing moment. like experience
Mm.
was the most recent one I can think of is um when I so I really enjoy like onsen, hot springs. I love going. It's a big part of what I do in
Mm-hmm.
my free time. And one thing that when I came to Japan, I wasn't sure what to do with anything. And so back when I was teaching English, I had this one student who was quite well off, you know.
Okay.
And so she had invited me and my manager to go with her to this really, really nice onsen. Come to find out that, and at the time I was living in like Shimonoseki, which is where Prime Minister Abe is from.
Mm.
And so back then, 5 years ago, I don't know if you remember, Putin came to Japan,
I
and
do not
him,
remember that, but okay.
yeah, yeah. So 5 years ago, Putin, president of Russia. Is he a president? Is that what it's called in Russia?
I
President.
believe he is the president. Yes.
Okay. So the
My
president,
history degree is clearly paying off here.
right? We're great.
Oh
But he had come, and Abe was showing him around, doing their whole thing, and he brought him down here to down to Yamaguchi. I don't live there anymore. I live in Kyushu now, but um, Abe had brought Putin to this same onsen because it's a very famous onsen. And I googled it afterwards, and this place is like super freaking expensive. Like I like gagged because I was like, oh my god, and I felt
Mm-hmm.
horrible that she had spent this money
Mm-hmm.
on me being an idiot. So like my first time, and so like we go in, and like I didn't know anything about bath culture in Japan, and so like I was like, I don't know what to do. So we're in the locker room, and I look over, and everyone's just like stripping, and I'm like, okay. And so I'm like stripping down too, and I'm just like, but like I'm trying not to like watch them because it's
Mm-hmm.
weird.
Mm-hmm.
So and like so like I'm like, okay, so we go in, and I'm no, and like I'm at the point where like I'm like, okay, I'm already like butt naked with all these other women. I can't like say I don't know what to do, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
just gonna go with whatever flow I think seems right and go with it. Bad idea. So basically like I remember I like didn't know what to do, and I got like separated from them, so I didn't know where they were, and I was like, "Fuck!" So I like saw the bathwater, and I'm like just standing there, 175 centimeters blonde up and down, and like there's this kid who's just staring way too hard, and I was like, I just can't get in the water. So I like started walking over that way, and I remember my manager like hurries over, and she goes, "Liz, no, you have to like bathe first," and it was so embarrassing. And I was like, okay. So I followed her, and then we like rinsed off and then got in the water, did our thing. And then when it comes time to leaving to like go out, because we were also getting like dinner together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when it comes time to leaving, she goes, okay, we're going to bathe or like seriously wash, and then we're gonna get out and go. And so
Mm-hmm.
like we wash, and they wash really quickly, so I go out after, like I also try to wash quickly, and then I go out. And I remember like they got dressed like super fast, and my student was drying her hair, and like I didn't wash my hair
Mm-hmm.
because like I was like, it's gonna take so long to dry it because my
Mm-hmm.
hair takes so long to dry. And it's so stupid. And so like I remember like my manager was just kind of like, you didn't wash your hair? And I was like, no. And she's like, didn't you get like sweaty? And I was like, no. I totally did, but I didn't want to say anything
Yeah.
because I was so embarrassed at this point because I just did not know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I'm fine. You know?
And it's yeah, it's absolutely in the beginning, especially when you first get here. You're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm allowed to ask about. I don't know,
Mhm.
like, when is it okay to ask questions? When is it not okay to ask questions? Like,
Right.
it's super super awkward.
But then you also don't want to look stupid as well. Like, instead of,
Right.
and like, even now, sometimes like stuff happens, and I'm like, do I need to ask about this? And I'll ask people things, and they're like, it's a weird question. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, I'm tired. I've been here for 5 years. I'm just going to ask you the question. So,
You do get less awkward about asking questions at this point, because even now, like, friends that I've had, for the entire 5 years that I've lived here, people who know me super super well, sometimes I'll ask a question and they'll look at me like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, listen, I don't know the answer, so just tell me. I wouldn't have asked if I knew the answer.
Mm-hmm. How about you? What was your most embarrassing?
Most embarrassing moment. I can tell you the one that genuinely keeps me up at night,
Hmm.
but it's so childish and it's so stupid that I'm prepared to get laughed at. Okay, I just want you to know I'm prepared to be laughed at. I was in
Okay.
elementary school. We're going back a bit for this one.
Okay.
Elementary school, and I went to a Catholic elementary school. Lucky me.
Gotcha.
And I was in Girl Scouts, and one of the Girl Scout moms,
Same.
yeah, right. One of the Girl Scout moms was a really, really nice lady, and she was really friendly and kind to me, and I really liked her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I would see her, I'd give her a hug, and she was really affectionate and like really, really nice. She was just a genuinely nice lady.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're leaving school at the end of the day, the kids kind of all run out of the school at the end of the day, run to their buses or to their parents who are all standing outside because the parents had to stand outside if they were picking up their kids, which in retrospect is poor security. But
Right.
anyway, so we all run out the school, and I see a lady who I think is this Girl Scout mom.
Uh-huh.
And I run up to her and immediately give her a hug. And this lady kind of like puts her arms up, like,
Who's
what?
this child?
And I say, bye. And I keep running. And it's not until I get on the bus and I see the lady talking to somebody else and I realize it's not my Girl Scout leader mom. And I'm, to this day, can remember that moment so clearly. And it's just burned into my brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Actually,
there you go.
yeah. Right as you were telling yours, I like had this moment where I remembered this thing I did in high school.
Uh-oh.
Right. So I had this friend. Sorry, I'm gonna change my answer because it's
No.
worse. I had this friend in high school, and I don't know why she would do this. She would see me. She went to a
Mm-hmm.
different school,
Mm-hmm.
and I am tall, even in
Yep.
America. Like being 100, being what is that? Like almost 5'10" as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's like naturally blonde, so like very bright hair.
Yep.
Very easy to like find everywhere. You
I
know,
haven't
so
had
like
any trouble losing you so far, so.
right, and so like she would always find me and she would run up behind me and kick me in the butt. Literally. Like she would walk up and then just full on Spartan kick me in the ass. Sorry. Uh whatever. And I would just be like, "What the heck?" And I remember I was at the movie theater with my friend and I look up and I see her. And like I was like, "Hold my popcorn." And I ran up to my friend and I Spartan kicked her so hard she fell to the ground. And she looks up. It's not her. And this poor girl's mom is standing there and she's like, "What the heck?" And I'm just, "Oh, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god." And I didn't know what to do. And I was just like yelling, "Oh my god." And I didn't know what to do. And I just panicked and I went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I remember I yelled, "I'm so sorry." And I ran, grabbed my friend. We ran into our theater. We're sitting there and like the lights start to dim because the movie's about to start. I see the woman and her daughter walk in. But it was dim, so they couldn't. And I was like, "No." And I remember I just slid down into my chair and I just like hid because I was like, "Don't look back. Don't look back. Don't see me." Oh my god. And like after the movie, I made my friend like squat down behind the chairs and we waited until everyone left the theater before we left.
That's incredible.
I wanted to die. I was like, "Oh my god. What's wrong
That's
with me?"
incredible. I love it.
Yeah. And then that's when I officially banned my friend from doing that because I was like,
No, it's too
I'm
dangerous.
right. I'm going to go to jail. So I was like, no more. But yeah. So god.
There you go.
Right, there you go. Second story. Next question.
Mm.
Ba-ba-ba-ba. Um, where is it? What impression do you think you give when you first meet someone? So, like, in your opinion, what is the impression that other people get when they first meet you?
So, uh, I'm very aware of my behavior around other people
Mhm.
because from a very, very young age, my father always told me, um, you have to model your behavior after the group you're in.
Mhm.
So if you want to be successful, you need to uh, fit in with that group. You can't talk like a manager in the warehouse, and you can't talk like the warehouse in a manager meeting.
Right.
It has to, you have to fit in with your surroundings. So I'm always very conscious of the impression that I'm giving.
Mhm.
So I think definitely I come across as very, very cheerful and kind of motherly, for lack of a better term.
Uh-huh.
And that's often because I want people to feel comfortable, especially in the profession that I'm in, where I have to get people to very quickly trust the things that I'm telling them.
Right.
It's very important that I come across as someone who cares about them and someone who uh, is just generally happy.
Mhm.
So I think I come across as much of a very possibly insanely cheerful motherly
Right.
type person.
That's fun.
Yeah. How about you?
um um I think, and people have told me,
Mm.
so I'm kind of cheating a bit, but, and of course not everyone, so probably other people might have a different opinion, but I've been told by people that when they first meet me that I come off as kind of an asshole. But like, right, but like not in like a mean way, but like in a like standoffish kind of way, which
Mm.
is not, is not my personality at all.
No, no, no.
But like, so basically when I first meet people, I'm very much a gauger. So like I will observe, and then from based on what I see is how I will act. I
Mm-hmm.
am a chameleon. That's what I do. I get along with everyone. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can make friends with like everyone in high school. I knew everyone in my high school and everyone knew me, and I got along with everyone, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But because of that, I'll start off kind of shy, seemingly, and like just kind of observing, and I've been told that. But then at the same time, I've also been told that I come off as like a bit of a know-it-all,
Mm-hmm.
because like, especially nowadays as an adult, working and such, sometimes like we need leaders to take over and do things, and sometimes people just either take over and they don't know what the heck they're talking about, and you're just like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no. And so there have been times where, I've been in meetings and people are just kind of talking out of their butt, and I'm like, that's not right. And because it's work stuff, so I'll like interrupt and I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why you're wrong, and this is why the doing it this way is better or correct, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I get that that makes me come off as like a know-it-all, and like I do know, and I think also, and you might be able to attest to this as well, since you were
Mm-hmm.
also a history teacher, same as me.
Yeah.
um I feel like history teachers typically know lots of random things.
Yeah, because you need a little bit of everything to be a history teacher.
Yeah, you need that context for a lot of things, but like,
Yeah.
and I don't know in New York, but I know with my degree we also taught like um economics and
Mm-hmm.
politics, and we
Yep.
taught history teachers were also expected to teach like psychology if you had a psychology course at your
Yes.
school.
Yes.
And so we have to wear so many hats. It's not just like, do you know what a squared plus b squared equals c squared? It's not just like this science property. You have to know so many random things, even for like historical topics. And so like, um I know a lot of random stupid things. And then like my dad is a big, history buff, and um my dad was military, so like he knows a lot of things, and so like he's taught me all these things as well, and I'm aware of that. So
Mm-hmm.
people either think I'm a know-it-all or I'm the mom friend. one of the two, because people either really don't like it and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
she's a know-it-all, or they like it because I'm like taking care of them and they're like, ah, the mom friend, we have found her. One of the
Yes.
two. And
No,
that is my
I get
impression.
that. Yeah, I
Right.
get that. I know, and like you said, it's a little bit of cheating because I have talked to people about this. Like, what was your first impression of me? And
Mm-hmm.
most people have said like exactly what I said, like the really really cheerful, but like very motherly kind of cheerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until you actually get to know me that the know it all history teacher comes out. Because I try real hard not to be like oppressive in
Right.
my
You're like,
like but at the same time, and you have this experience as well, we're teachers.
right.
Well, you were, I am. And
Right.
it's a it's a force that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can't control, where you're
Mm-hmm.
like, I have to be the control in so many situations that sometimes in situations where you don't need to be the control, it just comes out anyway.
Right. No, yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So, when I came to Japan,
Mm.
because we met through teaching,
Yes.
and we met at a meeting for the first time at one of like training meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, I knew who you were because
Mm-hmm.
you joined the year before me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew who you were, but I wouldn't say we were friends until
Mm-mm.
recently. Like
No,
when
we
we
became
didn't,
friends like a year or two ago. Yeah.
yeah, I want to say yeah, like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's because we happened to go to the same lunch together because like during the
Yeah.
lunch period we all like scatter to the
Yep.
winds and then reconnect, afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
and like we just happened to go to the same place with a group of people.
Yeah.
Um, and then we were like, oh, I like your company. Let's be friends. Hi, how are you? How did you do? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and now I'm my friend. Um,
Exactly.
but like, I'm curious, what were your impressions of me? Because like when I first met you, like the very first time at the beginning, it was very brief,
Mm.
and I remember thinking as well. I remember thinking like, oh, she's very bubbly and she's just very outgoing, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, But then like I didn't really talk to you much after that until 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then when we like were talking during the lunch, I was like, okay, she's very bubbly, she's very outgoing, she's like a chill person, she knows a lot, so she's like intelligent, and like those are the kind of friends I like to be with, people who like know what they're talking about and don't like BS it. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know what that is, and you're just like talking out your butt, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you clearly don't, but like you're not one of those people, and so like that's when I was like, okay, I enjoy you as a person, so I can be friends with you. So what were
Yeah.
your impressions of like me?
Hilariously, the very first thing I thought about you was, wow, she's a really good teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
What made you think that? Do
we
you
were
remember?
sitting we were sitting at breakfast, as a matter of fact.
Ah.
It was like, oh, maybe what, 3-ish years ago, with another friend of ours who lives
Uh-huh.
in a different area. Um, and the three of us were sitting at the table where we have breakfast,
Uh-huh.
and I was having trouble prepping for a thing, prepping for one of the lessons that I wasn't super familiar with, and
Uh-huh.
I was sitting at the table making materials, and you came in and started talking to our mutual friend, and you looked and you're like, oh, what are you doing? And I explained what I was doing, and I explained what I was having trouble with, and you went, oh, you can do it this way, and then immediately fixed my problem. And I was like, wow, she's so good at this.
I genuinely do not remember. I remember being there at the breakfast table. I do not remember helping you with the
Yeah,
problem.
you sat right across from me, and you were like, you looked at my, you're like, what are you doing? Because I was like cutting stuff and coloring, and you were like, and I explained it, and you just fixed my problem immediately, and I was like, oh my god, she's so good at this. Why?
That's so funny. It's funny
Yeah.
that you say that because recently I was hanging out with a, another teacher from my old company,
Mm-hmm.
and my old eikaiwa that I taught at, and he was talking to me about like his problems, and I was like, just do this, this, and this, and he was like, oh my god, you're so good at this, and I was like, oh, thank you, I guess. I mean, I
Yeah.
appreciate it, but like that's so funny that you say that.
Yeah, that
I do
was
not remember that.
no, that was
Oh.
generally the first time, because that was the first time, because I had seen you, because I want to say it was about 3 years ago that this happened,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I had seen you at a previous thing,
Hmm.
but for people who don't know, when you're a foreigner in Japan,
Mhm.
you come across two different kinds of people. Either the person that's going to be, here for life, or the person that you really don't need to remember because they're not going to be here that long.
Because next year you won't see them again.
Exactly. So I tend to not communicate a tremendous amount with the newbies.
Mhm.
It One, it's just a setup for heartbreak. You're like, oh, we could be friends, and then you
Mhm.
leave. So try to avoid that. But also, it's just you tend to gravitate towards people who have a little bit of the similar experience that you do.
No,
So
yeah.
I tended to gravitate towards people who had been there just slightly longer.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that your first year, I don't think we communicated at all.
No,
But I
yeah.
remember seeing you because, as you mentioned before, you stand out.
Yep, sorry.
Oops.
No,
So
yeah.
you stand out. It's a a
It's a
blessing.
blessing and a curse.
So I remember seeing you the first time, and then but it wasn't until that first breakfast that I actually remember communicating with you. And then the year after was when we had lunch, which was where we actually started to communicate as friends. But it it was a really weird, like, I was like, wow, she's really good at this. And you had been doing that particular style of lesson longer than I had. Um,
Mhm.
because I actually had changed schools from a school that um, was into another style of lesson. So it
Mhm.
was it was a a new experience for me in the fact that I hadn't just done that style before. So it was cool.
Mhm.
I felt very taken care of.
Aw, there you go. I tried the motherly side. I'm glad you
There you go.
interpreted it that way and you weren't like, wow, what a know it all. Leave me alone.
No, I mean,
Ooh.
and there's definitely a difference between the style of person who's just like telling you this because they know and
Mhm.
telling you this to help you.
Right.
And it was very clear that you were like, oh, here's something that I can help you with, instead of like, oh, you don't know that, well, let me tell you what I know, which gets punched
Mhm.
really fast.
Mhm.
All right, next question.
Yes.
What's your favorite place on earth?
What? Uh Good question. What is my favorite place on earth?
Mm-hmm.
Um I would say honestly, I would probably say Kyoto, Japan if the foreign tourists were not there. If tourists were not there. Not even foreigners. Like there's a lot of Japanese people that go there as well where I'm like, can you like just go home cuz like
Yeah.
your lack of spatial awareness stresses me out.
Yep.
So like I would say Kyoto, Japan, but because of tourists of all types, I get very annoyed very quickly there, and I don't like that.
Yep.
So I would say mm, I have very fond memories of my childhood back in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably have to say Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived in a very very small village in Germany, on the border near about an hour from the border of France. Um, and it was called we called it K Town. It's called Kaiserslautern. There's a lot of Americans there. So they used to, I don't know if there still are a lot of Americans or English speakers there, but especially Americans, and they would call that town Little America because there's so many, Americans. I
Mm-hmm.
to this day I don't know if there are still a bunch of foreigners who live there. No, not a clue. But I have very fond memories. There was like this huge forest there. It was very natural but city at the same time. So yeah,
Okay, that's a
I
good
was
one.
probably say K Town. Yeah.
Okay.
How about you? Sorry.
Um, that's okay. There's an inlet near my house, um, that the you can see the city on one side,
Mm-hmm.
and on the other side it's just like this tiny little beach.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at the end of my street when I was growing up as a kid, and even to this day, like, it is. I went home for 2 weeks about 3 years ago, and I that was one of the first places I went when I visited, because it's just such a nostalgic. but it's such a peaceful place. I'm always one of those people who wants to search out like where can I find like the Zen place, the place where you can feel at peace, and that's
Mhm.
definitely my at peace place in America. In
Mhm.
Japan, I took you there. The waterfall.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a
Mhm.
waterfall near my apartment here in Japan that's connected to a shrine, and it's just so pretty. But the way that the rock is made around the shrine, it cuts all of the sound. So when you're sitting in front of the waterfall, you hear nothing except the waterfall, and it's
Mhm.
so peaceful.
Mhm.
And I've sat there for hours just enjoying the peace.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's probably gonna be my answer.
Mm, I think your answer was better than mine.
Fair enough.
So let's do last two questions. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
All right. So then my last question for you is where is it?
Well, I mean, these are the last two questions for now. If people want to hear more questions or they want to see us play this game again, let us know in the comments
Mhm.
below.
Right, definitely, definitely. Um, where is it? Sorry, I'm like looking at my list.
It's cool. I'll keep the people entertained with a little
Yeah,
dance. You can't see me.
so they can't even see. Um, but I hope they like the animation that's there for now. Um, so okay, my final question is, why did you choose your profession? Why did you become a teacher?
Okay.
Right, I'm over
Are
here
you
with my
ready?
deep topics. I'm like, huh. Yes, what's up?
Are you ready for a tale of intrigue and jealousy and drama to match the
Tale of the
ages?
old times. Yes, I don't think I said that right.
Um,
Do I English? No.
I don't. I honestly don't anymore.
Mm.
Anyway, so I chose to become a teacher because as a child, I really wanted to be a lawyer,
Oh.
and I got accepted to a program, um, an early admissions program at Harvard.
Mm.
Uh, and it was like a fast track to Harvard Law and like getting into all the things that I wanted, but it was expensive.
I mean, yeah.
And when I was visiting. I was a freshman in high school at the time, and so it
Mm.
would have been like a every summer I would have attended the program, and it would have been like a when you applied in your senior year, you would have been like immediately accepted. It was essentially like fast track to where you were going.
Mm.
And I was talking to my grandmother at the time, and
Mm.
her response when I told her about the fact that I had been accepted to the program was, "Oh, don't go. You're not smart enough to do that." And
From
I was
your
like,
grandma?
"Yeah."
Ugh,
And
ouch.
I'm like, "Oh, okay." So suddenly, like it was like I'd been untethered. I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm not smart enough to go. What am I supposed to do with my life now?" And it was like this whole like existential crisis that was beyond anything I could possibly imagine. So I went into school the next day, and I was devastated because like the thing I'd been dreaming about my entire life was essentially
Mm-hmm.
ripped away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what do I do? Because it had never occurred to me to just ignore her because I'm like, it's my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my history teacher, and she uh, she was like, well, just figure out what you want to do. Like, she's like, if you want to be a lawyer, but you gotta, do what you're passionate about. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know anymore. Like my spirit had been crushed. So we had a class, my history class that day, and it was a world history class. We were learning about ancient Japan. And my
Mm-hmm.
teacher said something, and she was super nice because whenever people corrected her, she was just like, well, you know more. Please tell me more. So she was very open to being corrected in class. And she made a
Mm-hmm.
comment, and I was like, that's not correct. And she's like, what? And I told her what the correct information was. And she's like, well, tell us more. What do you know about this subject? And I just went off, and I just was like telling them everything I knew,
Mm-hmm.
which happened to be a lot. And at the end of class, she held me back, and she's like, you know a lot about this subject. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
teach class next week? And I was like,
Oh.
teach the class? And she's like, yeah. She's like, I have 3 classes at these times. She's like, do you want to come in as like a guest speaker and talk about that period of Japanese history? I was like,
Oh.
yeah, okay. So I did that, and I at the end of that day of teaching those classes, I was like, that was so much fun. She's like, I think you have the potential to be a really good teacher. I
Mm.
definitely think that's something you should look at. I was like, okay. And then I looked into it, and the more I looked into it, the more fun it seemed, and it like became my passion. And now I get to do that. So it was definitely a finding yourself moment of my story.
Mm. That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. That's why I'm a teacher.
Mm.
And why I will probably always be a teacher. Even if I was to win the lottery, I would definitely still be a teacher.
Oh no. Yeah.
That's
Same thing.
it is the thing that I'm the happiest doing. How about you?
Um. Kind of similar esque kind of, trauma and all that stuff. The usual jazz as to rebellion of my life. Yeah. So I don't. You probably don't. I don't think I've ever told you this.
Hmm,
I have APD, which is auditory processing disorder.
interesting.
Which affects about like less than 5% of like the population.
Hmm,
It's pretty rare esque. Um, and so like back in like the early, back in the 90s, early 2000s, in elementary school, that wasn't early 2000s, back in the 90s, 2000 90s. I can't English. Back
what
in the
is English?
90s,
Yeah.
right? Back in the 90s, um my parents, I struggled a lot in school, and like we couldn't figure out why, and like I had a teacher, and this is right after I moved to America.
Hmm,
And so in elementary school, and I had this teacher who would call me stupid like all the time. She'd be
hmm,
like, I don't understand why you don't get this. You're just not paying attention. You're just choosing to be stupid. And
hmm,
I remember just always feeling like the dumb kid in the class. And I was like, I just genuinely don't know what's going on, you know? And like, of course, I can't like articulate that in any way. And I remember my grades in school were so poor that like they were required to do parent teacher conference, and I remember my parents came, and I was sitting there with my parents and this teacher, and it slipped out of her mouth where she called me stupid because she had called
hmm.
me it so often that it just came out of her mouth. And as soon as she said it, my mom lost her mind. She was like, "How dare you say this to my about and towards my child?" And we left, and my parents were like, "We're gonna figure out why you are struggling with school." And so originally, this school was like, "Well, let's do a learning disabilities test, just very basic." And we figured out that auditory wise, I just wasn't able to figure out what things were.
Hmm.
And so at first they were like, "Oh, she's not deaf, obviously, but she might be like hard of hearing." So I went and got a hearing test done, and I was fine, perfect score. So they're like, "Well, she's not hard of hearing, so that's weird. So like, what is up? Why is this not working?"
Hmm.
And at the time we were living like DC area, Washington DC area, and so my close to John Hopkins, and so we went to John Hopkins, and um, they did some tests, and they were like, "Ah, we think she has APD,
Hmm.
auditory processing disorder." Which I don't. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, for anyone listening who doesn't know what APD is, basically, the way information comes in through your ear is processed in a part of your brain, and then that information is processed to what you hear and what is happening. With APD, the problem is so many sounds are coming in at once, and it could be even like random sounds, like a beeping noise, and all these sounds come in at once, and the brain cannot differentiate the sounds, and it all just gets muddled together.
Hmm.
And the way my elementary school is it was 4 classes, but instead of having 4 different rooms, we shared this massive room that was divided by like bookshelves. And
Okay.
so while my class is doing math, another class is doing I don't know, literacy, and then another class is doing science, and then the other class is doing whatever. And so
Right.
when I'm learning 1 + 1 = 2, when I'm hearing that, that doesn't get processed as 1 + 1 = 2. That processes as one plus a verb,
Mm-hmm.
transforms into, whatever random number somebody said in a different room.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brain was just like, okay, so one plus that equals 36. Awesome. Because that is what I heard.
Right.
And like I got like therapy and all that because it's such a rare thing that like John
Yeah.
Hopkins was like, we want to study. And so like once a month I'd go to John Hopkins and we'd do all these tests and um essentially got an IEP. And from that point on, the school system was like, me, they were like, Bella is never going to go to college. That is not going to be an option for her because of APD.
Mm-hmm.
Most kids with again, it's a small group, do not finish school. And they were like, she will be lucky to finish high school. And that will be an accomplishment of itself. So that will be her goal. And my mom went, nope, she's gonna go to college. And so basically in high school, it came to time to like fill in like what we wanted to study and what we wanted to be and blah 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 blah. And I was like, I don't know what I want to be. So I went over to my neighbor's house and I was talking with her and she was like, well, what do you like to do? And I was like, I don't know. And at the time, I was a volunteer Sunday school teacher at my church, and I was, doing that, and I was like, I don't know, but anyways, I gotta go to the church because I gotta like do lesson plan stuff for Sunday. And she goes, why don't you just be a teacher? You already do it. And I was like, because I've never had a good teacher. I don't know what that's supposed to be like. And she's like, exactly. You've never had a good one. Be the good teacher.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a thing. And so I was just like, oh no, that makes sense. And like it's very much a selfish thing on my part. But that's why. And so like I went into teaching, and like sometimes I do have regret for leaving America and not continuing teaching in
Mm.
that way. Because I do love history. I do enjoy teaching high school students. They were rough, but that was a thing. I don't know. So yeah, that's how I became
There you
a
go.
teacher, and that's what inspired me was the fact that I have APD and I was called stupid in elementary school. Don't even remember that teacher's name. Probably couldn't hear it, honestly. But yeah,
It's funny that your experience was the worst teacher you've experienced, and mine was the best. So
right, very different.
interesting how we diverged in that way.
Hmm.
But it does show. It goes to show how influential teachers are in your life.
Hmm. No, I totally agree.
One of the best revenges I ever got was against a teacher who made my life awful in high school, which is a story for another time.
Okay.
For our last question for today, let's
Okay.
end it off on an interesting note. What is your favorite quote or saying?
That's such a good one. I have a quote book. Where's my quote book? I have so many quotes in there though. It wouldn't be beneficial for this. My favorite quote or saying. I'm gonna kind of cop out a little bit,
Mm,
and I'm gonna say like shogunai as like my favorite saying because
okay.
it's like kind of how I live my life is shogunai. And for those who don't speak Japanese, shogunai is like it doesn't translate well to English, but essentially it's like it can't be helped or it's just the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's kind of how I live my life is, there are things in life that we can't help, that are sometimes out of our hand. And those things can be out of our hand, but I think also keeping in mind that not everything is shogunai. Because I've had
Mm-hmm.
people who tell me like, daijoubu shogunai, and I'm like, this is not a shogunai moment.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I think I want to say that's like one of my philosophies I live by is shogunai. Like, if it's out of my
Mm.
hands, then I can't. Then it's out of my hands.
Mm. That's interesting. Yeah.
Hmm. How about you?
Um,
I think you're just gonna be all philosophical, and I'm gonna be like, dang it, should have chose a better one.
I mean, there's a lot.
Right, same.
Um, like there's the ones that like my father said to me a million times growing up that are stuffed into my head. One of my favorite dad isms was love is a fallacy propagated by the government during times of war to occupy the populace.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, my father has a very nihilistic view of the world, and that's one of my favorites. I've pulled that out in front of students before
Hmm.
because I've so one thing people are going to learn about me very quickly is I'm not a very romantic person.
There you go.
I'm not very focused on romance or love or relationships,
Hmm.
and I do, however, value the relationships between people as friends or as family. Relationships
Right.
are important, but romance not so much.
No, yeah,
But
yeah.
the romantic ideals of love are things that I've never really been into.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of that stems from that quote. Love is a fallacy propagated by the government during times of war to occupy the populace.
That's so
That's
interesting.
definitely, yeah, that's one of my favorite dadisms.
I like that whole dadism for you. Dadisms for me is like, what's shaking bacon? And I'd be like, nothing much, Dad. What do you want? And he'd be like, nothing, just checking in. Bye, kiddo. Bye, Dad. And that's my dadism. You're over here with philosophical questions and statements, and I'm over here just like,
Well, that was
yo,
the other one that my dad was famous for was if you can fake sincerity, you've got it made.
I do agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll get into some of my dad's more fun quotes at another time, but
Right.
they believe me, there's a lot of them.
Okay. But yeah. Well, we sorry. So yeah, we asked a lot of interesting questions, a lot of fun questions.
Yeah,
I am curious, like anyone who listens, like which of these questions did you really enjoy? What is your answer to some of the questions? And do you have any questions that we should answer in a future video?
yeah.
If you can ask any question, you can ask any of these like get to know us questions for the question game, or maybe there's a specific like question about like Japan or travel, um, teaching or whatever that you just want us to talk about. Please comment down below. Please don't forget to like this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe and to ring the bell because the bell is a thing on YouTube now, even though you already subscribed, hopefully. But that's how it works, and we cannot control the kami-sama of YouTube.
And don't forget to turn on your notifications in your phone so that the bell actually works. It doesn't work if your notifications are turned off for YouTube.
YouTube
So
kami-sama, please give us a break. We're new.
be kind to us.
We're small. We're no Mr. Beast or
Don't forget to follow
Kate
us.
Nelson, but
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, uh, at DuoChicks and at ChicksDuo.
right. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye
Bye.
bye.